Today I want to talk about something that has proven to be probably one of the most difficult topics that I've tried to cover for a while. This is probably about the 15th time that I've tried to make this video. And since I started trying to say what I needed to say, I find myself going off on different personal tangents and not really sticking close enough to the message to be concise and clear, and to try to not alienate people based off of what I'd come to understand is an inherent ideological belief system. And the thing that I want to talk about is blackness. And in the context of this conversation, I'm going to ask this question right now to get you to chew on it and see what your initial response is going to be. But that question is simply, what does it mean to be black? Now, that's probably sounds like a retarded question. It sounds dumb, like, what do you mean, what does it mean to be black? You know, and then you list off what you feel to be the obvious answer. But the reason why I ask this is because being a zebra in America, born in 1970, I've had a rather unique experience when compared to someone that's born to white parents or someone who's born to black parents. You don't really have a lane that you fit in. And so you see things from a different perspective. But what's led me to ask this question is there, over the past few years, have been a couple of people, mostly from the conservative party or conservative ideology, that have been called the various plantation names: Uncle Tom, Coon, sellout, caping for white folks, whatever they say. And these things are things that I've heard all throughout my life, but for me, it was because my mother's white. My mom's German, Irish, Indian, and my dad was African American, black, whatever you want to call yourself to make you feel better. He was a man of color in America. And so these two components of my upbringing, they were diametrically opposite of one another. And so my experience, when I weigh this through, my own understanding, I get it. I'm half white, blah blah blah, fill in whatever your favorite trope is with that. But seeing people like Brandon Tatum, Candace Owens, they're the probably the most well known. They've been kicked out of the black club as well by the same people who hold this mindset, and their reason for being kicked out is because they have conservative beliefs. They believe that America is a great country. They are Christians. They are, they're married. They're family based. These are all good things, and their political association lines up with. They own things. They work for what they have. They believe in law and order, and because they have these beliefs, and they don't measure whether someone should be required to follow these things regardless of color, then they're cast out. And this is a constant narrative. And now most recently, Uncle Ruckus Joy Reid keeps making videos talking to whoever's listening to her that are black. She's talking to them like they're dumb. And I'm not quite certain if these people are dumb, because some of the things that she says, that she projects, number one, it's what her own political side believes and what they're doing. But it's like the house Negro chastising the field Negro because they want to come inside and feel what the AC is like. And there's a bunch of talking heads like this, and I'm not sure if these people believe this or they're just doing the job so they can stay in that AC. But one of the things that really that made me feel compelled to make this video and touch on this was a few things. Amber Rose sat down with Candace Owens, and I've made my feelings and my opinion about Amber Rose and what she stood for perfectly clear in previous videos. I think that what that girl stood for, I feel like it's disrespectful to the gift she was given. And when I first saw Amber Rose, I thought she was she was beautiful. I thought she was a beautiful girl. And then when I started, because the reason why I found out who she was because of her affinity for rich losers. And she immersed herself in this culture, in this Jezebel culture. And so everything she stood for was disgusting to me, despite her physical beauty. But for whatever reason, she's had a change of heart, and she's trying to articulate how and why she came to this epiphany in her life, and she's began to see the strings that were attached to her. Now, I'm not one to throw flowers at people simply because they're using their platform to garner attention or get clicks or whatever. If she's truly had a change of heart, if she truly has seen how the way she was moving wasn't maybe the best way for her to move, and she starts to change her life, she can take a lot of people with her. But she's gotten off that plantation, and now she's no longer black. And seeing these girls have this conversation and listen to Amber explain things from her purview, it made me actually look at her in a different light, because myself, I don't blame anybody for the decisions that I made. But like I said, I grew up in the 70s after all of the civil rights chaos that happened. I grew up in the dust of that era, and the things that I learned at an early age, it made the rules very evident of how I was supposed to move in my life. The earliest years of my life, my formative years, were spent with my mom's side of the family, the German, Irish, Indian people. They were your typical upper middle class, I guess, white American family. I didn't really understand all the nuances of that family because of who my dad was. My dad's side of the family were street thugs. They were just partially Black Panther revolutionaries, and the men were just gangsters. They were just gangsters. But when those two worlds collided, my first experience of the integration process when we moved from Texas to California, it was a culture shock. It was an absolute culture shock, because what we saw as normal was ridiculed, not just by my relatives, but everybody who lived in that neighborhood. We lived in the ghetto. And although my grandmother was, she's pretty well off, she still lived in the ghetto. She still lived in the hood. She was one of the original people to own a house in what ended up being just a sprawling neighborhood, but it was still in the hood. So regardless of what rules and regulations and what we saw in the home, when we went outside, it was different. And so speaking proper English, having any sort of etiquette was seen as square. And we got called white boys a lot. We got laughed at a lot because we learned how to speak English in a white home in Texas. And so it probably was pretty funny. But really, really quickly, I learned how to undo a lot of things that I grew up learning. Then when we came back to Texas, something happened that really opened my eyes and made me self-aware. Because what created me, my German, Irish, Indian heritage and my Black American heritage, it wasn't the color, it was the culture. It wasn't because they were black that they acted this way. It was the culture. It was poverty culture. It was a culture that I would come to learn about when I went to the penitentiary, how and why it ended up this way, and why it was so repulsive but necessary for me to find a way to navigate through that jungle. It's where I lived. And so when we came back from California after being integrated with my dad's side of the family, something happened, and I picked up on it really quick that it was what we were doing. And I don't recall the specific actions that we would take or whatever we would say, but my uncle and my aunt and sometimes my grandparents, but mostly it was the ones who were charged with overseeing us, babysit us. Anytime we would do something somewhat probably wild or unruly, they would tell us, "Don't be black." Don't be black. And my uncle, who was just an overt racist, it made it clear one day when my brother did something. I wish I remembered what it was, but it was something that was most likely loud or just explosive, because that's who we were. We were wild Indians when we came back from California. We turned into street kids. And my uncle, who was he was a straight up Yosemite Sam white dude. One day he said, "You need to stop acting like niggers. Stop acting like niggers." And that shocked me, man, because I knew that he didn't really like certain people, but every time I had heard that word said that way, it was always in reference to something that I knew, something that was personal. And I asked him, what is it? What do you mean when you say it? How can I not be black? I am black. And he told me, he said, "You're not black." He said, "You're half white and half black." He said, "When you left here, you had manners. You knew how to act." He said, "When you guys came back, you guys are acting, you're acting like niggers." And again, I was floored. I was like, "Dude, what does that mean?" Like, as a child, you don't understand what's going on. Nobody sits and explains to you, why they say the things that they say to you. All you do is you try to adapt. You find a way to make yourself safe and find a way to make yourself accepted in whatever group you're in. That's human nature. We want to be part of the tribe. So rather than continue to do the things that got you mocked and ridiculed, you learn how to speak the language. You learn how to do the things. And so growing up, after that conversation with my uncle and out through observation, I figured out that when I was around this side of the family, in order to get inside the house, in order to hold a position, at the table or in a conversation and not immediately be told, "Get out of here," you had to assimilate. Basically, you needed to shut your mouth, allow grown folks to do whatever, and if you were included, cool, but you learn how to not get kicked out. And so I learned how to ingratiate myself to this side of the family, and then when we went back to California, I knew how to speak the language, and I, immersed myself in that. And that was the condition my entire life. My entire life, I was always too dark. I was too other to be running around thinking that I was a white dude, and so that never really crossed my mind. But a good number of my friends were people that weren't black. In the black neighborhood, my mom's white. I got green eyes. I speak English a little bit different than a lot of them did, and so to avoid that target, you have to make concessions. And so that's where I learned how to fight and do a bunch of things that would serve me well when I leaned all the way into trying to gain the appreciation, the acceptance, and the admiration of dummies, just basically dummies. And so, all along the way, as I got older, all the things that would get me that label, "You think you're white," it was always things of me trying to escape the environment of the neighborhood. I grew up during the Reagan era, and in the neighborhood we lived in, you were affiliated, you were associated, wanting to be accepted for what was praised, honored, and revered in that community. You were a hustler, or you were just a gangster. That's what it was. Those were the people that we admired. We admired athletes, musicians, and really, 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 what we really admired was the dudes that got it out of the mud, that had the cars, that were getting the girls. Those are the people that we admired. Those were the people that all the little dudes could access. Like, you know what, I can do that. And so we jumped in that. We jumped in that with both feet, and immersing myself in that choice. What my interpretation was if being a crazy nigga was what it was going to take to, you know, to have that upper part on the totem pole, then I was going to give it to him. I was going to give it to him. And so the reason why I went to prison was really, as a grown man, I can look back at it in that moment where I knew what we were about to do was wrong. I wanted these fools to look at me like I was a monster. And so they're sitting there trying to jam me open the door to get access, and I wanted to be a gorilla. So I booted it off the hinges, and immediately I knew I messed up. I knew I messed up, but because I didn't want to be square, because I didn't want to get back to the spot, I'm like, oh, this nigga, old scary ass nigga. I went in and played the part. And, you know, when I fell, I deserved everything, because I had gotten away with a whole lot of things that, you know, it could have got me deeper. And so when this happened, I was face to face with myself. There was none of my homeboys, none of my real niggas that, you know, there was nobody who I worked so diligently to you know, reach this level of respect and you know, appreciation and acceptance. There was nobody there. There was nobody, you know, making sure my books were tight. None of this stuff happened. And when I got inside, there was another decision that I needed to make, because if you want to look at, you know, what actual separation, segregation looks like, in the penitentiary, pretty much anywhere is where you go. And the norm is to click up with your kind. So white dudes roll with whatever set they're with, the Mexicans do the same, and the blacks do the same. And it's usually in Texas, it's a city affiliation, and then your ethnic affiliation. Well, I'm not white, I'm not black, and I don't come from Texas, so, you know, I did my time on my own, and I ended up getting in this cross with a little Mexican dude that I didn't know was affiliated. I was just running off at the mouth, you know, again, trying to impress this brother that I was with, and I popped off and I guess I wasn't paying attention to where I was at. And about 10 minutes later, a little homie, he came up from behind me and gave me the business. And he socked me right in this area right here, and it was a wrap, man. I saw 3 of them until it was time for the fight to be over with, and, you know, I got served, you know. But riding back to the unit, going to the infirmary to, you know, go through the process, I'm sitting there thinking about it, man. Me and this dude, we got into this altercation. I got touched up, you know, and now I'm facing some more bullshit over what? It was straight up over ego, because I wanted this you know, Houston brother to, man, this nigga's funny, man, he's real. And I popped off and said something about homie's mom. And because he was a smaller dude than me, he knew if he would have fell up in the road with me, I would have dusted him up. And so he did what he was supposed to do. And, you know, we're sitting in there, and my brain is starting to just go through all this, man. Now you already got 20 years, man. Now you got to fade this, man. This could be a major case. I try to kick him, and you got steel-toe boots. It's a weapon. And so, you know, it was messed up, man. So I got jammed up for that. Because he beat for me, I didn't get rolled up like he did. They shipped him off, and I go back to my tank, and all these dudes in there are booting up. All these dudes are booting. All the brothers, man, they like, you know, man, we ain't going out like that. You know, and so it was about to pop off. It was about to be the blacks against the Mexicans in a full-blown war in open dorms, man. There ain't no cells, we're open dorms. We had like 105 dudes packed in there, and out of those 105 dudes, maybe 7 or 8 of them were white dudes. So our dorm and everybody down the whole block was about to catch fire over this situation, and over some black shit. It wasn't over, you know, me and this other man having a conversation, me being disrespectful, both of us really being disrespectful to one another, and then whatever was gonna happen happened. It happened. I got touched up. You know what I'm saying? Like, I shouldn't have popped it off about his mother. Real talk. This was this this was a situation where the whole thing was stupid, man. The whole thing was stupid, and this dude got in a position where his little homies heard me talk to him that way, and because he was affiliated with these guys that would have done something worse to him, he had to do this. And so the whole plot, the play was when they called out for wreck, everybody was gonna fall out and it was gonna clap off. And so rather than go boot up and fall out and be a real nigga and go on with this madness, there was a little tiny dude, man, little old little SA, cool little dude named Shorty. And he was a shot caller for these dudes. And basically Shorty was over there like lining his soldiers up. And man, I wasn't about that. I wasn't about going out here possibly ending, like having my own existence being ended over an argument over which turn row we were gonna work in, because that's what it was all about. Two slaves arguing about which one of Massa's row, we were gonna work in. And being logical, man, I went over there and I talked to him and I told him, hey man, you know what? That was unnecessary, man. All of this shit is unnecessary, and I apologized to him because they put homie up and shipped him off, so I couldn't get back at him. And the way I read that situation was, man, you lost, man. You lost, and now you have the opportunity to lose some more and to take a whole bunch of other dudes with you. And so I went over there and I apologized to Shorty and I told him, man, I was wrong for doing that, man. I was wrong for doing that, and I apologize because I didn't just talk about his mom. I said some inflammatory, racist things to him in doing that. And so basically what I did, just talking trash to homie, I made it about everybody. And so I sincerely apologized to him because I don't have anything against anybody because of their color. And I'm damn sure not gonna take a whole bunch of people down with me because I got what I asked for simply because I'm black, because I'm not. I went on this whole rant and this whole spiel to say this. Again, I want to ask the question, what does it mean to be black? Because if you watch the way things have played out, I'm 54 years old and I've seen political entities move and maneuver the black community around like puppets. And now that I see people like Brandon Tatum, Candace Owens, two obviously purely black folks getting their black card revoked, and then them giving it freely to people like Kamshot Harris, like you pass this around, you pass this torch. If it goes to just anybody who's helping you speak about how much of a victim and how unfair life is, then it makes sense. I get it. But I've known too many brothers and sisters who came from where I came from, who made different choices than we made. Those were the kids that weren't allowed to play with us. Those are the kids that if they got caught associating with us, they'd have been locked away, if not shipped off, because they had parents who understood what the neighborhood was, what the mindset was, what the ideology of most of the little Indians running out on the reservation or the plantation, what they thought, what they felt, and what they believed. And a lot of it might seem stereotypical, but stereotypes are based in really like ratio. When more than the average fits this stereotype, then that's how you make fun of those things. It's a generalization because more often than not, this is the case. And so now you got people like, all these witches, Joy Reid, pretty much everybody that you see of color that's on television, they're all parroting the same thing. Now black men who are looking to get off the plantation, Uncle Ruckus, Joy Reid is telling them that they're white adjacent. Going back to my question and overlaying that with what my uncles told me, what they were saying to me as I was growing up. I don't think that being black is something to be proud of. Being black is something to not be ashamed of. I've never heard anybody but a racist white person talk about white pride. I don't hear that. Pride should be reserved for an accomplishment. Being born black is not an accomplishment. You know, I think that one of the biggest problems that we face in this country, especially the black community, is this need to hold on to this victim thread, this slave-minded plantation ideology, still waiting for massa to bring you your food and your drink and tell you how to move. Because that's all these people do. And one side of this aisle is promising free things and taking things. The other side is saying, hey man, here's an opportunity, here's some structure. If you follow the structure, get your hustle on, you can build whatever it is you want. But rather than doing that, it's so much easier to look backward, peel the scab off the wound and cry, oppression, marginalization. And now you got the same people who have raised generation after generation of broken young men in that community spewing from their ivory throne that has been facilitated, no doubt, by white people, that white people are somehow the enemy and blackness is the best and all this. And, if you don't do this, you're not black. I say maybe if that community, if the people that feel oppressed and feel like they want change, maybe the first thing that you need to do is don't be black. Stop being black. If that's the way you identify, that's the way you vote, I don't care what it is. I don't care what it is. This identity politics is ruining everything in our country because everybody can be a victim. You point the finger at someone else, but if you believe that someone is responsible for your life being what it is, you're absolutely right. But the problem is you think it's someone else. In America, 99.9% of the time, it's yourself. It's the way you view yourself. It's what you believe about yourself. And it's how you show yourself to the world. When I went to the penitentiary, one of the things that helped me the most in figuring out who I was as a man and to get rid of this ideology, stop trying to impress and get the acceptance of people who didn't even accept themselves, was reading a book called Black Bourgeoisie by E. Franklin Frazier, and it explained exactly why the community is the way that it is today. And if you want to understand this, if you want to understand what it is that you feel when you walk into a room and you think, oh man, they don't like me because I'm black, you should understand what it is that might be repelling those people. Because I can't tell you how disgusting it makes me feel anytime I see a video of what's supposed to be the strongest voice in our culture twerking on tables, flipping over shit, and starting chaos in restaurants and public facilities. Then crying racism when they're held accountable, if they're even held accountable. That's not racism. And that's not how intelligent, cultured black folks act. And hearing that probably will make the hair stand up on a whole bunch of bald-headed hoes' head, but I don't care. I'm at the point where I'm so tired of hearing all these people cry victim while these folks are bringing people in this country that are going to absolutely destroy it. And in the comical part, in the Shakespearean way, is the same people that moved this community to poke and make fun of Republicans and people that aren't blinded with stupidity, when they started doing this, said, hey man, they're trying to replace Americans. These same puppet masters and gatekeepers got you guys to join in with this narrative, like, a white man's scared of being overtaken. They're not overtaking white neighborhoods, and they won't. They won't, because those folks won't allow that. And whenever the plantation gets overrun and people decide they want to secede and go start another one, then they're crying about, why don't you stand here and take this abuse, white boy? The biggest problem isn't someone else. It's what you think someone else thinks about you. And if you can dissect that and realize that that's your own projection, you're projecting that. If you're walking down the street dressed in a woman's blouse with your pants hanging down and you got barrettes in your hair and someone looks at you, you shouldn't be feeling some kind of way because you look like a clown. You look like a weird clown. Oh man, you because I'm black. No man, because you look like a booty rape clown. The reason why I'm saying this is because I hear so many people that have this underlying belief system about things, and it's not just one sect of people. It's dumb people. It's a bunch of dumb people. The biggest threat to America right now are stupid people. Stupid people and people with mental illnesses being vaulted as heroes and leaders. And they want to keep putting these puppets in front of us and they're showing you exactly what they think about black people. This lady brings out Meg the Stallion in a half special needs rapper to speak to black people when the people they let across this border are taking the resources from them in their faces. And you're gonna cast a vote for someone because of the color of their skin, even though they've been standing right next to the dude that has brought in the people that got brought here to replace you. You know, I said when the George St. Floyd, all that chaos jumped off, that in that moment that the community had people's attention. And in that moment they could have made great strides to changing the things that truly mattered, but instead they went out and did nigger shit. They got instigated, they put the battery in them folks back, and they did exactly what they knew they were gonna do. And now they're trying to play the same game. They're trying to ramp this whole thing up, making you think that this worthless woman is the next coming of whoever your savior is. And you're not black if you don't fall in line. You got a fake house Negro telling you field Negroes that you need to stay out there and keep banging on it because change is a-coming. Go out there and sing your black Negro spirituals and wait on these white folks in mass to come out and tell you the next lie while they're bringing the people that they're gonna use to get you up out of there, and you're clapping for them. The same people who paid your grandmammy and them to run the pappies off, the major broken uncle and pappy and them, all the same people pulling the strings. And they can count on that because of the simplicity of that mindset, that slave plantation mindset. I stopped trying to meet the approval of the masses a long time ago, and since then, my entire life has changed. I don't have to worry about any of the madness that I willingly put myself into and through because I was trying to fit in with those on the plantation rather than doing what I was being made fun of to get me off of it. Once again, Black America has the opportunity to make some real changes, not just in the direction of where we're going, to put an end to some of this madness, but to actually facilitate the changes in the communities, in the culture. Because being a Christian, loving your family, loving the fact that you were born in the freest country up to this point, there ain't nothing wrong with those things. Believing in boys and girls, there's nothing wrong with those things. But these people have convinced dummies and losers that that's the way we're supposed to go. And you see what they facilitate in the neighborhoods. All of those sticks All of those sticks and things that are in Chicago didn't end up there by accident. And most likely, it happened up under the Savior's watch. And just like he ran them down south, I wouldn't be surprised if they dropped some off over there too, because that's what they say. But that's your Savior. That's Massa and them. Black men in particular, I'm speaking to you because you are the most sensible people in this population. It's time to cut the umbilical cord from mama and them or whoever had you believing that you gotta vote blue, because that's the people that are gonna save you. Nobody's gonna save you. You gotta save yourself. You gotta do that yourself. But you gotta have some time, you have to have some resources, you have to have some help. So rather than looking at things and saying black man, white man, Mexican man, let's just all remove those identifiers and just be men. Because it's gonna be up to the men to save this country, to right this ship. And there's a lot of people, I know you guys, there's a lot of you guys that say it's too late, it's already over, and I hear you. I hear you, but we still have breath in our lungs. We still have strength in our muscles. And we should still have the will in our heart to fight for what we believe in. Surely you don't believe in nothing. This is the last bastion of hope for freedom. And they are convinced that all they got to do is clap some cheeks and throw you some chicken bones, and they got your vote. Otherwise, you ain't black. If you're honest, what's considered black culture is toxic. And Kamala showed you that when she brought that trifling Meg the Stallion up there to try to appease the slaves on the plantation. Show them some booty cheeks, speak some degeneracy. That's what they like. That's what they celebrate. We got them now. I'm saying this in the most respectful manner possible. Stop being black. Just be men. Just be Americans. Let's bridge this gap that they need for us to stay this wide chasm. We gotta join together as men. Otherwise, the end result of this, what the true meaning of equity is that we're all poor, that we're all in the soup line begging these folks to give us a scrap of bread. Do your research on where this ideology comes from and look at how it's come out. Look how it's turned out for those people. It doesn't matter what color you are. If you're in the way, you're in the way. Being black is not the most important thing in this country right now. Being American should be. Out.